I want to tell you about a BECTA project being supported by SALTIS, which I think is going to be absolutely fundamental to bringing e-learning that really works to our schools. Because we've all heard the talk about e-learning in schools, but very few of us so far have seen the practice that has shown real transformation. One way you could look at the problem is to say that there were three facets of e-learning in schools. First, the pedagogy, the activity, the doing. And in a digital context, this normally means software applications or Web 2 services. Then there's the curriculum context. So if we're talking about a discussion, is it a discussion about Henry VIII or about the splitting of the atom? Third, there's the school context. Data about the student, membership of teaching and learning groups, competency, performance, preference, accessibility, all the data that is critical for the personalization of learning, as well as data about the teacher, the assignment, and the program of study. If e-learning is really going to work in schools, then these three different facets need to be properly integrated. And that means that different systems need to plug together automatically and reliably without a technician in sight, so that the non-technical teacher standing in front of a class of 30 children can just trust the technology to work first time. Over the last 3 years, most schools in the UK have been installing learning platforms, loosely defined groups of learning tools. One part of that learning platform is commonly the virtual learning environment, or VLE, what most people outside the UK would call a learning management system, or LMS. We understand this component as an infrastructure into which third-party learning content can plug and play. But everyone's interpretations differ. What has generally happened is that people have bought a VLE which implements a few internal functions, and then they might have a few pieces of expositive learning content, perhaps some Word documents or PowerPoint presentations. But this is not a vision of learning content which is getting anybody very excited, because, as every classroom teacher knows, learning is about doing and not just about reading pages of text. So when we talk about learning content, we're talking about software applications and Web 2 services, things that provide functionality and activity, not just information. These learning tools need to plug into a VLE and exchange data so that the learning service can find out about the learning context and send back to the VLE information about what the student achieved and did. Many of these learning services will provide multiplayer or collaborative learning environments, and there's no reason why that collaboration cannot occur between students coming from different schools who arrive at that learning service from different gateway VLEs. These different learning services and tools will have their own types of content and their own data formats, and the VLE will be only one of many interoperable components on the learning platform. Our vision is of a much richer learning environment in which many applications and services can plug together easily. And it's only with that plug-and-play functionality that schools will be able to use the technologies that they want and not just the technologies that they're given. Just as the 3-pin plug is essential to a free market in electrical appliances, so digital interoperability standards are essential to a free market in learning technologies, which allow the teachers and not administrators to drive the provision of learning services. The project we're working on with BECTA aims both to tighten and to extend the interoperability standards to make them fit for use in schools. Ultimately, it's a big project and it can't be done all at once. We think it's going to result in an iterative stepped approach, and what we're currently doing is finalising the requirements just for the first of those steps. Let me tell you some of our findings. First, we need to make sure that we've got the simple things right. We need to make sure that standard content runs properly on current VLEs and that content is described and indexed in ways which allow it to be found by teachers. We need to make sure that the legitimate interests of publishers in the copyright, branding and integrity of their products is respected. We want to establish effective ways of exchanging some basic but essential data. Resources should be able to save state on the VLE so that a student who gets halfway through an activity in a lesson can finish it for homework. And any resource should be able to store basic data about student performance back in a common markbook. Finally, we want to establish agreed ways in which content can be disaggregated, broken apart into its constituent activities, so that teachers can use just those parts of a course that they need for their lessons. Part of the process of gathering requirements for the first step has been to identify what needs to be put back to the second step. We will introduce ways in which teachers can recombine disaggregated activities to create their own pick-and-mix work plans, lesson plans, and courses. We will introduce agreed ways in which content can be authorized, allowing remixed courses to be redistributed. We will introduce support for adaptable content and high-level authoring tools to support reuse and rich user-generated content. We will allow creative learning tools to return student product to the VLE for marking, sharing, or posting to an e-portfolio. We will support learning services which deliver multiplayer games and collaborative activities. We will investigate ways in which VLEs can manage learning tools which may be running out of the browser. We will support the sharing between VLEs of standard quizzes and tests. We will support the standardization of e-portfolio and competency data. We will investigate the ways in which VLEs can work more closely with caches and proxy servers to maximize school bandwidth. There is so much to do to turn our vision of e-learning in schools into a reality. And that is why it is so crucially important to get this first foundation stage of the project right. We need to make sure that our vision is a good one, not just technically, but also commercially, and of course crucially, pedagogically. And that is why we're looking for feedback from teachers and educationalists, both inside and outside the UK. We need to make sure that we have consensus amongst the key stakeholder groups. And we need to build confidence that will persuade suppliers to make the investments that ultimately will turn the vision into reality. So if there's anything in this video which excites you or perhaps angers you, if there's anything with which you strongly agree or disagree, and if there's anything critically which you think we've left out, we want to hear from you. You'll find full documentation for the project on the SALTIS website. You can contribute your thoughts to the SALTIS forum. You can come to our next webinar, the date of which you'll find advertised on the website. And if you're in the UK and would be interested in coming to one of our face-to-face meetings, please drop an email to me, Crispin Weston, or to John Rogers at Edicts, who's responsible for managing the panel that will be representing the views of end users. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you.